Okay, so today is June the 3rd, 2026. Welcome to another live broadcast. Today, well, you better hang on to your seats because we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about this issue of this young man. We're going to start off talking about this issue of this young man in South Carolina, Cyrus Carmack Belton, and that whole case here. We're not going to, we're not going to go through every detail. We're just going to cover the main parts of it. But we're not going to just stop there because the discussion itself shouldn't stop there. We got to look at the whole picture. And so when you look at the title of this video, and the title of the video is saying that the black community doesn't give a damn about its children, I want you to make sure that you're focused on unity. You cannot have a community without unity. So the point of this video, the purpose of this video is to ask you, are you unified with this prevailing thought regarding this case and the other ones that we're going to bring up? So that's what we're going to talk about, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to give people a little bit of time to get in, about a minute or so. And then after that, let's get it. We're going to go right to this. We're going to go right to it, okay? Welcome to the broadcast.
The queen who thought her crown was too heavy to wear. But baby, that crown was built for light. You twist, you turn, you tuck, you side. Mirror talking, why can't it just lie? But I see galaxies in every curl. A sacred pattern, baby, that built the world. They said too coarse, I said too divine. High quality always takes time. Girl, your roots run deep as history. That's more than beauty, that's ancestry. You may think your hair's a curse, but I see it as a blessing. You've been stressing with that pressing, but your essence, baby, that's the lesson. Let your crown glow, let it breathe, let it show. Crowns aren't meant to be covered, no. I don't care what the others think, we just wanna see you happy. I'm happy, cause that's how I know it's true. Learn to love your crown, baby, I'll show you how. That's for see the sun hits right on them coils so tight.
All right, another 30 seconds.
You say it's hard for fingers to slide through, baby, that's two of us, me and you. Let's leave China and India out this talk. We walk in roots that angels walk. No synthetic love could ever compete with the rhythm that your curls beat. You say it's hard to manage, but art always takes some damage. Still you shine through all that pain. Girl, that's power in your mane. Let your crown glow, let it show, let it show. Crowns aren't meant to be covered, no. I don't care what the others think, we just wanna see you happy.
All right.
That's how I know it's true.
Welcome again to another live broadcast. So glad that you guys could join us today for yet another conversation that I hope that will at least get you thinking. And, as we get into this, and we do take all of our conversations very seriously. And, this is, and I don't, most importantly, don't want to waste anybody's time or anything like that. And so that's why we're just going to get right into it today. So again, welcome. Beautiful day out, here in sunny Arizona. We are at I'm looking at 103 degrees out right now. So it's pretty warm out. And, but nonetheless, it was still a wonderful day. And we're going to continue to have one. So welcome. And for those in the chat that will be coming in the chat, welcome as well. So glad that you guys are here. Let me just say this for those that are the regulars, I'm just going to speak for our regulars and for those who are brand new. But first, I want to speak to you regulars here. I want to say how much I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys. And, and it does say something when you have people who regularly come back. Now, in this particular discussion, because it's going to be something that has a lot of emotion attached to it, I understand that. I get that. you know, and I welcome disagreement, as I always do. If you want to disagree, that's quite all right. Dwayne, you're missing it on this one. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to take that personally or anything like that. That's kind of how you have adult conversation, is that we don't all agree on everything. Everyone has a unique perspective on everything. You understand what I'm saying? Doesn't always make one right or wrong. I'm not always right. And I'm not always wrong either. Neither are you. You understand? So it's fine. It's totally fine. You know, in this conversation, what I simply ask is that there is a full brain engagement, meaning that don't just rely on your amygdala. Okay. Your amygdala is a part of your brain that it just takes everything in and it immediately goes to emotion. It's connected to your emotions, and it plays scenarios all the way out, right? It just all kinds of stuff, right? Because again, your brain is designed to protect you, right? And so your brain will project all kinds of different scenarios and conclusions as a way of protecting you, your emotions, and all that other stuff. So your brain a lot of times will present itself a conclusion or an alternative reality that you could say, oh, okay, I get it. I understand this now. I can contextualize this because based on, it just makes me feel better about this. You know what I mean? But you also have your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain that takes that information and says, you know what? Before we jump to conclusions based just on the amygdala, hold on now, you got to come down the hallway. We got to take a look at this here. We got to look at the facts here, because the facts here, it tells us this, this, and this. So let's work together and let's figure out, okay, what do we prioritize? What is real? What isn't? And all of that. So in this video here today, that's what I'm asking you to do, is that we're going to look at all of it. Okay. And so that's why I had this, if I can find the doggone thing here, it's right here. So use your whole brain for this discussion. And so the full title is, I played on the whole, for those of you old enough, it's Miller time. Well, tonight it's mirror time, because we're going to have a deep look into the mirror on this particular one. All right. And like I said, the Black community. Now, before you jump to conclusions, again, what am I saying? We have what's called a so-called Black community. But you cannot spell community without what? Unity. Remember what I just said? That any community or people, we all have a diverse thoughts or opinions on things, right? There should be a common thread in a community. But what I am going to present to you this evening is a challenge to you and ask you, is there a common thread on this particular topic? I'm going to let you decide on that. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to get into. Now, are there Black parents and adults that actually do care and love Black children? Absolutely. That's not what we're saying here. But what we're challenging is this concept that we have put together and we just loosely call a common unity. That is what we're challenging. Okay, so that I want to get that all out in front before someone jumps into the comments or in the chat or whatever and already go into conclusions without hearing the whole matter. So I do hope you stick around and listen to the whole matter, because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to look at, we're going to start off looking at the highlights of this particular case that took place in South Carolina, in Columbia, South Carolina, where an Asian man ended the life of a young boy, 14-year-old boy. Okay, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into the highlights of that case. But we're going to look at it, but we're going to look at the facts as known. Okay? That's what we're going to look at, the facts as known. We're not dealing with Twitter rumors. We're not dealing with he said, she said, or what I think and what I believe and all of that. And we're not dealing with any of that. We're going right straight to what is known, what is publicly known. So, for example, what is publicly known is that this jury was made up of, what was it, 5 black individuals. So it was, I believe it was 3 black males, 2 black females, and then it was 3 females, white females, and 2 black and white males, or something like that. So it was a divide between 6 black individuals and 6 white individuals, or 5. I think it was 5. My bad. 5 white individuals and 5 black individuals, and then there was another 2 that they said were, they said non-white. So that could be Hispanic or whatever, right? So for starters, we can't bitch and moan about not having representation in the jury pool, because the jury pool looked at the case. They looked at the details. And from what I understand, typically all the facts and the details of most cases aren't always necessarily released out to the public. So we don't have everything, but we got quite a bit out here that we can look at. And that's what we're going to look at. Okay. And so we can't bitch and moan about, well, we ain't got representation. Well, we do have representation. We have black faces on the jury pool, and they were a significant part of it. And all of them, here's that word, unanimously looked at the facts as presented to them. And they, here's that word again, unanimously came to the conclusion that this store owner was not in the wrong for shooting this boy. Okay, that's a motorcycle on the back. That's their thing out here. All right, let me get rid of this here. Sorry about that. I just realized that was still up here. Okay, let me get rid of that. Okay, there we go. So let's establish that first. We're not going to, so you see how little details like that get automatically blown into the wind. Nobody wants to bring that up. So now we got to erase that goalpost, and now we got to move the goalpost to something else. Because you can't say, oh, it was all white people. No, they were black. There was a significant number of black folks on there, and they looked at it just like the white people, just like the non-whites on there as well. And they all unanimously said, based on the evidence, there you go. That's what they said. Okay, so let's start with that. All right. Now, let me look at some of the details here, and let me see if I can pull them up here. Unfortunately, because I'm this platform I'm using to broadcast, it doesn't, I don't know if I'm able to share the screen on this one, but I'm just going to read it to you basically. All right, let me just go through the timeline. Okay, this is the timeline. What happened again? The name of the young boy, 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton. Now, I was wondering, I was like, I've never seen, you typically don't see a child with a hyphen name, but basically the hyphen name, from what I understand, it comes from his parents. His mother's name was Nicole Carmack, and the father's name is Troy Belton. And so because it's Carmack Belton and not Belton Carmack, my guess is that the boy probably spends most of his time with his mother. That's just my guess. Maybe, but we know there's a reason behind that. We're just going through some of the details, right? The details aren't commonly talked about. Okay, this ain't no strike against him or anybody else. We're just looking at the details, right? So this boy here, Cyrus Carmack Belton, let me go back here. All right, so what happened is, after 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton left the Express Mart Shell station, Andy Chow initiated a foot chase. His father, now that Andy Chow is the son of the store owner. Okay, he's the son of the store owner. His father, Rick Chow, armed with a handgun, followed. And then it goes on. They said during the 135-yard pursuit, Carmack Belton tripped and fell to the ground. All right. So while this young boy was running from both of the childs, he tripped and fell. And they said as the teenager got back up, Cyrus, we'll just call him Cyrus. When Cyrus got back up, Andy Child, that's the son, saw that the boy had a firearm, saw that he had a gun, and we found out that it was a semi-automatic gun. He testified that Carmack Belton, or Cyrus, turned and pointed the weapon directly at him. Andy backed away with his hands raised and screamed out warning to his father. And then Rick Child, who is the store owner or the father, immediately yelled, "Drop it, drop it," before firing a single fatal shot into Carmack Belton's back. That's the premise there. That's what we're working with, okay? Now let's get to the details here. So the more details. Now the defense, what's the defense saying? The defense team relied entirely on this warning. They presented 911 calls and police body camera footage recorded immediately after the shooting. So immediately after the shooting, someone calls 911 and the police immediately comes over there. The police show up with body cam, and of course they're wearing body cams or whatever. And according to that, this is what the jury saw and watched and witnessed on their own. The first things that both of these childs were saying was this. Let's continue. It says immediately after the shooting, to prove both the father and son consistently, right at that point. So immediately after this happened, they immediately said consistently that there was a presence of a gun, and they also said that repeatedly that they gave verbal warnings over and over again to drop the gun, drop the gun. Now, let's stop for a second. Let's take a deep breath before someone jumps in the comments and says anything. I was not there and you were not there. So we can't say what did happen or what didn't happen and assume anything else. All we got is this. So that's what we're going with. I don't know the childs, and guess what? You don't know them either. Okay, so let's continue. Now, the prosecution, the counter argument, they said that there was no independent witness. In other words, they couldn't find anybody saying that it did happen or it didn't happen. They didn't have any independent witness who saw Cyrus point a weapon. They couldn't really find anybody that says that he actually pointed a weapon. They argued that the gun had simply fallen out of his pocket during the chase and that the childs were the legal aggressors for chasing an innocent customer over a false shoplifting accusation. Now, so the accusation, the reason why this individual was chasing them, the childs were chasing them, is because from what I understand is that they believed that he was shoplifting. But from what we understand is that that wasn't the case, that it may have appeared that he was shoplifting, but they didn't find any of the product on this young man. So it wasn't so they were not able to prove that he was shoplifting. Okay. So let's continue here for a moment. So I looked up, okay, what does the state of South Carolina has to say in regards to, store owners and their rights or lack thereof of when it comes to defending their property, because that's a very important question to ask. Does the state of South Carolina, do they allow that? Okay. And so, no, they don't. All right. A merchant can only use non-lethal force. If someone is coming into your store in the state of California and they are stealing something, you can use non-lethal force. You are not permitted to use lethal force. Okay. Now, before someone says, aha, there you go, there it is. But you're right. You're absolutely right. That's what it is. I looked it up. A store owner cannot use lethal force. So for those that have short attention spans, they'll just take off to the races on that. But that is not what the case relied on. All right. Because the moment this individual in this story, as I explained, where a gun was, according to the son, he said he has a gun. The son is raising his hands up. The father's in pursuit. Now this is not about something that was stolen. Now this is about, wait a minute, this boy is pulling out a gun to shoot my son. So that's where the defense was able to say, okay, this is what we're going to go with, because if this was about just simply he got shot because he stole something, that's one thing, but that's not what it is. The boy got shot. Again, I am just retelling you what was said. I'm not sharing like he should have did this or he shouldn't have done that. I'm not going there. Okay. We're just simply going over the facts as known. I have to keep saying that. So the defense, they was able to focus on that. And that was the pivotal part of this case, why they was able to turn it in such a way where it wasn't so much he just shot him because he was, here's another black boy in my store and I just can't wait to shoot him up. It wasn't that. Yes, he did pursue him and that was it. So anybody that's out here saying that this boy was shot over something, I've heard people say over a bottle of water or something else, they are lying, because that is not why this young man got shot. That is not true. He didn't get shot because he had candy. He didn't get shot because he was just strolling in the neighborhood. It was a bright sunny day and he just went to go in and get a bag of popcorn and some candy and a soda, and he was just minding his business. That's not what happened at all. This store owner, according to him, he believed that he was stealing something. And the store owner pursued, along with the son, chased him out of the store. There was no firing of the gun at that point. The only time the gun came out is when the son said he's got a gun. According to Andy Chow, he was raising his hands, yelling to his dad he has a gun. The father then, in turns, he pulls out his gun, because now it's not about, I'm just, you stole some gum from me. Now it's, okay, you have put my son in the line of fire, according to the son, according to the father, not according to me, according to them. This is what was in court. Okay. And that is that's the part of the case that this entire case rested upon that. Okay. That's what it is. Okay. And so unfortunately, this young man, Cyrus, lost his life over that. Okay. And so there are a lot of people right now that are out here, already wanting to protest. There's people out here saying that, okay, as black people, we're going to do another boycott. Just stop with the boycotts. They never work. They never will work at this point. And no, black folks aren't going to boycott all Asian stores, because if that's the case, that means that everyone that's wearing a wig, everyone that's wearing, getting your nails done, the nails that you're wearing, the long lashes that you're wearing, the TVs that you watch, the phones that you use, the cars that you drive, and all the electronics in there, that means you're going to have to boycott all of that too. Okay, so that's not happening. So let me just say this. Is this a case? Now we're getting into a little commentary here, because I wanted to start off with that so that we can have a baseline here of this is what happened. Is this a case where, first of all, just to be clear, I am not going to sit up here and call this young man a thug and he got what he got and he needed to get that and all that stuff. I'm not saying that at all, nor would I suggest that. Anytime that I hear of a young man, a young black man, or a young black boy, a young black girl, or anybody that is out here dying in their prime, in their youth. It breaks my heart. It really does. It's a sad day in America when we have to hear stories like that, where our children are losing their lives in the prime of their youth. So across the board, that is something that, there is no, I don't care who it is. I always start with that. You understand? That's, let's start with that, regardless of your political affiliation, your religious beliefs, or whatever. This is a life at the end of the day. And it's a life that did not have to end this way. Okay? So we can all, I think, us out here who are reasonable, I think we can all agree on that. Okay? So let's start with that. Okay? Now let's start going in a little bit deeper into this. Okay? Now, what I would argue is this, is that the conversation regarding this story should not start at the fact that this young man caught a bullet and he died. Shouldn't start there. The conversation should actually begin at the fact that this young man actually had a gun in his possession in the first place. That's where the conversation needs to begin. Now, again, am I calling this young man a thug? Am I saying he's a this or that or whatever? No, there's no need to name call. We don't have to do that. I don't have to portray him anything other than a 14-year-old boy, period. That's all I have to do. That's all I'm doing. So don't read into anything at all when I'm saying. But the conversation actually needs to begin with the fact that this 14-year-old boy had a possession of a gun. Now, I also took a look, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. I looked at the local laws when it comes to in the state of South Carolina. What are the local laws when it comes to the possession of a gun? All right, especially if you are of that age. And in short, I'll just give it to you. The local laws basically says in the state of California, you have to be 18 years old. Okay, you have to be 18 years old in the state of California. If you're in the state of South Carolina, sorry about that, if you are going to have a possession of a gun. Okay. And they said it's a constitutional carry state. Adults 18 and older under South Carolina constitutional carry, Second Amendment Preservation Act. Adults age 18 or older who are not otherwise legally prohibited from owning firearms can legally carry a handgun. But you have to be 18 years or older. This boy was 14 years old. Now, the moment he put that gun in his hand, he was walking in illegal territory. Regardless if he went to the store or not. The moment he made the decision to illegally, that's the key word, this is not a gun, but illegally put a gun in his hand, he was walking in illegal territory. Now, let me say this to you. It's interesting out here. You remember I told you there are some places out here, and I'm sure many of you have been to similar places. But, there are some communities, particularly as a black person, you ain't trying to stick around too long, right? And I've been to some houses, and some of the houses I've seen on the doormat, I saw a few of them that said, just to let you know, this is on the doormat, said, just to let you know, we don't call 911 here. We call the coroner. That's what they said. Okay. And I've seen this on several mats. I was like, okay, yeah, I don't need to see any more to know that I better be very careful around here. Now, legally, what they're saying is that if you are trespassing, in other words, if you're someone that we did not invite on our property, we have the right to defend ourselves. We have the right to shoot you. Okay? or do by any means necessary, if we believe that you are being a threat on our property that we didn't invite you, we have every right to shoot you or whatever it is that they want to do in the name of protecting their property, right? So they're giving you clear warning. Once you know the law, I am reminding you of the law. Do not trespass on our property. Do not come on our property if we didn't invite you. So it's known you ain't supposed to do that. Okay? Now, this is a 14-year-old boy. This is a 14-year-old boy. My first question is this. Where was the father? Oh, some people don't like that. Already getting mad. Oh, why you got to go there? Because that's where it begins. That's where training begins. It begins in the home. And and you think I'm just saying this as a diversion to what happened that night. Oh no, baby, we're going to bring it right back to that night, because what I'm asking you is key to the case. Okay? So my first question to you is, where was the father? Okay? And then we can also ask, where was the mother? We can also ask, where were the extended family members? Where were the elders in the community? Where was the church? Where were the other organizations that are throughout Columbia, South Carolina? Well, again, I spend a great deal of time looking into, a lot of this here because I wanted to know, a little bit more about Columbia, South Carolina, which incidentally, my relatives, both on my parents' side, my mom and my dad, they both come out of South Carolina, but not Columbia. They're more like in another part of South Carolina. But anyway, I wanted to look at the crime statistics in South Carolina. Well, Columbia, South Carolina, if you're not familiar with Columbia, South Carolina, it's pretty much black. Okay. It's all pretty much mostly black folks that live there. Okay. So here's some quick data on it. Crime statistics for Columbia indicate that the city faces significant safety challenges, with overall crime rates tracking 76% above the national average. 76%. 76% above the national average. Yeah, that's not really good at all. What's the overall risk? A resident's chance of becoming a victim of violent crime in Columbia is roughly 1 in 156. Homicide rate, the city averages roughly 9.7 murders per 100,000 residents annually, which trends higher than the national baseline of 6.1 per 100,000. Aggravated assault numbers sit significantly above the national average at 590.1 incidences per 100,000 residents. And then here we get more into the details here. Property crime, overall risk. Property crime is heavily prevalent in the city with a calculated 1 in 16 chance of becoming a victim. Larceny and theft, shoplifting, and general thefts make up the vast majority of local police reports. From 2020 to 2023, local law enforcement logged over 15,400 total larcenies, with more than 3,000 specific to shoplifting. Then you got burglary. I can never say that. Rates sit at approximately 10.8 incidences per 1,000 residents, notably higher than the U.S. average at 6.1. Okay. Give me just a moment here. I just need to send out a quick text to somebody here. Hold on just a second. Give me. Anyway, so there you go. This is where we are with that. Okay. So just so you understand the scene here. Okay, so crime is very prevalent in this city that is made up of pretty much a significant majority of black folks. Crime, crime, crime. It's there. It's the same story, right? And so now hopefully you begin to understand why this individual, the shop owner, had a possession of a gun in the first place, because I started some of the things I have at least heard, and I need to verify. They said that this individual actually has a track record talking about the shop owner, because in other incidences, he has also encountered other times when people came into his store, tried to steal something, he pulled out the gun. Now, I didn't read anything about him actually shooting at somebody to kill them. Only thing we can speculate, because we don't know, is that he was shooting warning shots. I am not saying that happened. I'm not saying it didn't. But what I am hearing is that there was other cases where he did pull out a gun anytime someone stole or tried to steal from his store. Okay? I am not saying this is a justification for anything. I'm just trying to give you the picture, the bigger picture of what is going on, have been going on in that community. Okay? But again, that kind of stuff, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to address that part. Okay? So now that brings us to where we are right now with, the untimely death of this young man here. And so I was asking you the question, where was the father? Where was the mother? Where were the elders? Where were these other organizations that could convince this boy that he, as a 14-year-old, should not have a gun in his person? Once you make a decision to do something illegal, when you make a decision to do something illegal, this is a life lesson here. Ultimately, there is going to be a legal response. That's called life. And according to the jury, they looked at the facts and they said, based on all the facts, we have decided that Mr. Chow legally did what he did. You understand what I'm saying? Whether if you agree with it or not, that's what happened. So anytime our young men, our young women or whatever, make a conscious choice or decision to break the law, the moment they say tonight, like it reminds me of a story where there was I think it was 3 black boys who decided to, they were doing this thing where in the middle of the night, kicking people's doors down, kicking them doors hard, and then just keying and jetting off. Well, as children, many of us used to do that. We would ring doorbells and run and all that stuff or whatever, right? But you can't do that today. But we would just ring doorbells and run. These kids now, according to, what was going on then, they weren't ringing the doorbell and running. They were literally almost kicking the door down. Well, there was this one particular case where they did that. This man is in his house, happens to be white. He's minding his own business. He is in his house. He's in his house. He's minding his business. He's in his house, in his space. They made the decision to break the law, to trespass onto his property. Once you do that, whatever happens, happens. And that night, something did happen. The man felt threatened, pulls out a gun and shoots. And I believe one of the kids, if they didn't die, they got heavily injured. I think he actually died. And there you go. So what was the response that I was hearing from some people? Well, this is racism. How is it racism when you decided to break the law? And see, any community, any common unity that sees the law as something conditional, my question to you is that something you're unified with? Do you feel that things should be conditional, law should be conditional? You believe that? Now, when it comes to this young man, unfortunately, Cyrus making the conscious choice, that's where it begins. How does that tie to the fact that he met an untimely death? Because just imagine if he didn't have a gun on him. Just replay the story that I just told you, and he was just getting chased. Would Andy, the son, would he have said he has a gun? Well, we don't know that, right? But if he didn't have a gun, what is the probability, based on what we do know, that this young man would have been alive? What's the probability of it? I would say, based on that, it's pretty high, because he wouldn't have had a gun on him, and nobody would have raised their hands, and the store owner wouldn't have had a reason to pull out a gun and shoot him. Because if the store owner shot this boy, Cyrus, and he didn't have a gun, we will be talking a whole different story here. Because now Mr. Child wouldn't legally be able to say, well, I thought he had a gun. No, that wouldn't stand. Because now the court case, the lawyers, they will be able to say, no, that doesn't wash. You shot him because basically you was mad that you thought so now that we're dealing with two things. You thought he stole something, and now you're saying you thought he had a gun. So both times you failed. You're going to jail. But that's not what happened. He did have a gun on him. That's the problem. So I'm watching the conversations about this case play out on social media, and it's very interesting to me, not just to hear just the unknowns, but a lot of these top YouTube channels that I see out here that are going with the assumption, they're given that, and I'm putting that in air quotes, that it was okay for him to have a gun. No, it was his possession of a gun that caused all of this. Oh, now you blaming the victim. No, I'm just telling you what happened. I'm telling you what happened. That's exactly what happened. This all centered because a gun that this young boy had in his possession illegally. Let me tell you something. Black folks, we have no standing. We have no moral standing to, on one hand, bitch and moan and talk about the gun manufacturers and, oh, it's a conspiracy. They're dropping packages of guns into the community, and they're at night while our children are asleep. They're using witchcraft, and they're convincing our children to carry guns, and whatever conspiracy theory that we want to throw out. We have no moral standing to go after gun manufacturers if you're going to legalize in your brain that this young boy, 14 years old, had a justifiable cause to have a gun in his possession. There's a reason why in a civilized society, there are laws that say children shouldn't have guns. There's a reason for that. Now, if the father was in place, if the mother was in place, they would have said, son, don't do that. And someone may say, well, maybe they didn't know. Maybe that is the case, because I looked that up too. They weren't living together. The father and mother, they weren't, and the reason why he has a hyphenated name is because, I already told you, the parents, they were never married, and so it's they do the shared name. I've never seen a boy have a hyphenated name, let alone a little girl have a hyphenated name. I only see hyphenated name on women, which that's a whole nother discussion out of itself. But anyway, we're going to go there with that. But that is where the conversation begins. And unfortunately, people don't want to go there. Instead, it is not about the boy. People don't give two craps about this boy. They don't care about Cyrus. All these people out here talking about we gonna mount up a war and all this other stuff, They don't care about this boy. You know why? I'll just go ahead and cut the crap, cut through the BS and tell you. They don't care about this boy. What they care about is who shot him. Let me say that again. What we call the black community does not care, did not care about this young boy. What they cared about is who shot him. Because if Mr. Chow was a Mr. Jackson and he had did the same thing, this wouldn't even been a discussion. It would have just been another day in the community. And at some point, we're going to have to be honest with ourselves as individuals, because some people, they can hear everything I'm saying right now. It goes in one ear and goes out the other. So I'm asking you, as I'm talking you through this, I'm asking you, are you someone that's unified with this prevailing thought out here that, you know, I'm only concerned about the person who shot the man, not so much of the fact that this boy lost his life? Because most people, like I said again, they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn about this boy. They don't. And so we got to be honest with that. And I'm going to give you further evidence of that. Okay? Because we're not going to just talk about this boy. I have screenshots here that I will share with you. And this is just, we're just going to start with this. Okay, let me see. Let's see here. I'm just going to airdrop this over to my phone. Oh, here it go. All right. I just was trying to find that. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. Let me go to, because I want you to see this. Okay, this one here. This is the one I want you to look at. We're going to start off with that one. Here we go. Let's take a look here. So I went and I said, let me do a search. And just in the last month of all the children that caught stray bullets, just in the last couple of months. Well, you're going to see them on your screen here. May the 30th, 2026 in Jackson, Mississippi. A child was injured by a stray bullet while sitting in the yard during a shooting in the York Drive area. Jackson Police Department detectives are investigating. May the 15th, 2026, Bronx, New York. A 5-year-old girl was grazed in the ear by a stray bullet while holding her mother's hand. A 15-year-old was arrested and charged with attempted murder in connection with the incident. All right, so let me get out of that and let me pull up these other one here. This is just in a month. This is just in a couple of months, y'all. April the 1st to the 2nd in Brooklyn, New York, a 7th-month-old Kaori Patterson Moore was killed by a stray bullet while in her stroller during an apparent gang-related drive-by shooting. Gunman on a moped. Her 2-year-old brother was grazed. This received widespread coverage. April the 5th through the 7th, Cleveland, Ohio area. A 9-year-old boy was grazed by a stray bullet that went through his father's car while they were heading to the beach. The father described him as very lucky. Late March 2026, Florence County, South Carolina. A 9-year-old boy was hit by a stray bullet inside a home and was recovering. Did you hear many of those stories? Were there any boycotts called for those stories? Anyway, let me go to here because I have some news stories here that I bookmarked. Let's see, where is it? Okay, it's over here. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, y'all. Let me get to window capture. Here we go. There we go. Innocent bystander killed by a stray bullet. Let me go ahead and play this video here and you can listen to it. It's small, but just you're not really missing anything.
The store turned into a shootout. One woman is dead, 2 others injured. Police say they had nothing to do with the argument. It happened on Jonesboro Road in southeast Atlanta. Channel 2's Cherish Fernandez was there, spoke to a relative of one of those victims.
And one of those relatives told me the woman who died out here was 43 years old, and police have confirmed she was an innocent bystander hit by a stray bullet. Now, I want to show you where police say all of this started. It was behind this store here called Little Bear on Jonesboro Road. Police say this all started with an argument with 2 groups of people behind the store, and at some point, at least 2 people pulled out guns and started shooting. Take a look at this black car here. Police were collecting evidence from that car. They haven't said what role this has played or if this is one of the victims' cars. Take a look at this video. Police say they got the call around 12:15 this afternoon saying shots were fired, and when they got here, witnesses told them that some folks were arguing behind the store. At least 2 groups of people. A shootout ensued, and police say all 3 victims who were shot, the woman killed and the other 2 who were transported to Grady, were all innocent. Now, we spoke to a woman who came to the scene after this all happened. She said her son was killed here 6 years ago, and this just makes her relive that tragedy.
They need to close this store down ASAP. They need to close it down. There's too much violence out there. It's sad. It's sad. Innocent people getting shot for nothing. It's just sad. And it brings back so many memories. So
Police don't believe there's any threat to the community. They believe this was an isolated incident, and they have not figured out who the shooter is yet. As soon as we figure out who the victims are and who police believe the suspect is, we'll get that information to you. We are in Southeast Atlanta. Taisha Fernandez, Channel 2 Action News.
Did we? Sorry.
today,
Did we hear anything about that? Was there any kind of quote unquote community wide, all over social media? Did we hear Tariq Nasheed? Did we hear Professor Black Truth? Did we hear Black Authority? Did we hear any of those channels having special reports covering this and talking about this and saying that, we got to get together and we got to destroy it? Did we hear any of that? Of course not, because it doesn't fit the narrative. All right, here's another story here. 78-year-old Bronx stray bullet shooting victim remembered as the grandfather of grieving community. Folks, this is all this year. This ain't, I didn't have to stretch and go back into 1980 or 1990. This is all this year, 2026. We just reached the halfway mark of 2026. Edgar Spence, 78, lived on Alexander Avenue in the Bronx for over 20 years. He quickly became the grandfather of the community. While sitting on a bench, enjoying the warm weather in his Mott Haven apartment building courtyard, Spence was shot and killed by a stray bullet striking him in the stomach, his family said Friday. Dozens of candles were lit in the shape of an E as Spence, family, and circle of friends mourned the bright light lost in their lives as Thursday night shooting at the NYCHA Mitchell houses. Everybody called him Grandpa. No one called him by his name, Harriet Hayward said. He was like a grandfather to me, said James Harrison, who remembered always getting advice from Spence. I can't believe he's gone. He was really a good person, says Wanda Gittins, who added, she's going to miss playing spades with her friend at our spot right there. And they said the shooting happened just before 11 p.m. Thursday. Police have not made any arrests, but investigations remain at the Mitchell houses on Friday and were reviewing surveillance video. So here you have one of our elders who literally the community called him Grandpa. He was shot and killed by a stray bullet. Did you hear anybody do a video or some kind of, we got to we got to do something about this, or this is wrong and all of that. Did that make your timeline? Did this story make your feed? Did this story make your feed? Did you react emotionally to this? Or is this the first time you're hearing this story? Did you feel anything? Well, I feel something now. Of course you do. But I'm trying to get you to see something here. Now, I went to GoFundMe. Now, we've done this before, and I, just quickly go through this again. And this, for brevity's sake, I'm not going to go through all of it, but I would encourage you, go to GoFundMe. Go to GoFundMe.com and do a search for Stray Bullet. Just do a search for Stray Bullet. You're going to find black folks who are asking for money just for simple surgeries because they were themselves hit by a stray bullet. We're talking older people, younger people, middle-aged people. They just need a little bit of money. That's it. Just a little bit of money. That's all they need. And in the meantime, you know what we call the black community does? Raises up almost $1 million for Carmelo Anthony. Because in some people's eyes, he's actually a hero. Do I have some more? I think I have some other ones. Oh, here's one here. Let's play this one and take a listen here.
He's graduating high school with nothing but a smile. And Noelle Lilly spoke with him and his family.
I could be visiting the graveyard.
Shantae Ford will never forget the day her 5-year-old son was shot in Plainfield, New Jersey.
But his eyes, I was losing them. It was like he was not there. He was zoned out. The bullet hit his lip, tooth, tongue, went inside the throat.
A quick walk to the store after school for Jasir's favorite candy, Reese's Cups, turned into a nightmare when the mother and son were caught in the crossfire of a shooting between two gangs.
So I instantly went into survival mode.
But this story has a happy ending. Jasir survived. He graduates on June 24th from high school at Thomas Jefferson Arts Academy here in Elizabeth.
It's like a bittersweet type of thing. I'm mostly happy to get up out of there, though. I'm not gonna lie.
So he had to go through a whole war zone just to graduate. And we already mentioned this one. Baby and stroller killed by stray bullet after drive-by attack in Brooklyn. Here's another one. 15-year-old charged after 5-year-old grazed in ear by stray bullet. These are the people who did it. Family identifies 6-year-old. This happened last year. Family identifies 6-year-old boy who died after being struck stray bullet in drive-by shooting. Did this picture, by chance, did it make your timeline? The ones they have going on now where they have Cyrus superimposed with Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and all that. Did they include this 6-year-old Riley Love? Did they include this picture too? Or he didn't, maybe he didn't, his killer, the one who actually shot him, didn't quite match the narrative. He wasn't a white cop. He wasn't an Asian store owner. So we're just going to wipe that away as that's just some street mess. We're just going to say, that's just, we're just going to wipe that away. It's just what it is. Those are just a bunch of niggas. That's all that is. Canton mom devastated after stray bullet hits her son.
Yesterday.
I feel it's unfortunate that, things like this happen, in our community and stuff. It was a random shooting. He had no involvement in it and stuff, but he's the victim of someone else's foolishness. We have to find a different way to resolve our differences. These young men, they need to be brought up as men and learn how to solve their differences in a different way. Gun play is not the way. And I think if parents would spend more time with their children, raising these young men to be men and to learn how to communicate and settle their differences with words instead of physical harm to one another.
And what he's saying is all good. It's all good, but the reality is that it's a lot easier said than done. There's a lot that has to be addressed, and it has to start with that big word called accountability. And that is something that is characteristic of what we call what's being called the Black community or CommUNITY. There is an allergic reaction when it comes to accountability, personal accountability. Anytime you mention any of this stuff, like the stuff I'm mentioning right now, it turns people off. People don't want to hear this. You're an Uncle Tom. You're a coon for even saying this stuff. But what I am saying to you is that Cyrus would have been alive today if he had people in his life telling him, what are you doing with a gun? Where did you get that from? Not, we got to focus all of our attention to gun manufacturers. No, that starts, before we get to gun manufacturers, that starts in the home. You understand what I'm saying? So I just went through a list of different stories here, and I do have one more here. This is something, it's not related to gun crime, but did you hear the story about this? Let me see where it is. Did I bookmark it? Hopefully I did. If I didn't, I'll just tell you about it. I'm sure you guys have heard about this story here. Here we go. Right here. Let me see. Maybe I can just pull it up here. Hold on for a sec. It's right here. Did you hear about this story? This story just happened in Atlanta. Oh, wrong one. All right, let me see. Hold on. Sorry about that. Let's see which. Sorry about that. It's coming. Sorry, y'all. All right, here we go. There you go. This right here. Federal charge filed in deadly stabbing of Atlanta great-grandmother. All right. And then when you read the story, let me see if I can pull up the story for you here. Give me just a moment here. I just had it. Oh, here you go. When you read the story here, I'll just read it for you here. A Decatur man is facing federal charge after prosecutors say he fatally stabbed a 66-year-old woman aboard a Metropolitan Atlanta MARTA train in what authorities describe as an unprovoked attack. John Elijah Matthews, 25, has been charged in a federal criminal complaint with committing an act of violence causing death on a mass transportation system in connection with the killing of Margaret Swan on May the 30th. According to federal prosecutors, Swan was riding a northbound MARTA train from Lakewood Station to Oakland City Station around 11:25 a.m. This wasn't even at night. This was during the daytime when Matthews allegedly attacked her with a folding knife. Investigators say surveillance video from inside the train shows Matthews standing near Swan, who was seated by the train door and looking at her phone. Authorities allege Matthews pulled a folding knife from his pocket and stabbed Swan approximately 20 times in the chest and neck as she attempted to defend herself. Passengers on the train ran and called for help. Let me read that again. Passengers on the train ran and called for help. At least they did that. We don't hear anything about anybody trying to stop it. At least one witness told investigators Swan had no interaction with Matthews before the attack. After the train arrived in Oakland City Station, MARTA police officers arrested Matthews at the scene. Authorities say he was found with a bloody folding knife consistent with the weapon seen on surveillance video and had blood on his clothing. They said she was pronounced dead on the scene. And then they go on and talk about how, how nice of a woman she was. And, she was just minding her business, living her life. And then this happens. Now, many on this platform and then on our Sabbatry platform, we have put a square focus on the crises of mental health within what we call the Black community or CommUNITY, where this stuff also happens a lot, where innocent people, elders, young people, this kind of stuff is happening, where not only they are the victims, but they are the ones committing the crime. But those kind of stories, like I just shared with you just now, we will barely hear about them. You won't hear the Roland Martins really talking about this. They'll talk about it some. And I have to give Roland some credit because he is addressing mental illness. He is addressing that. So I have to give him that. But some of the other ones, they're not going to mention this on podcasts or whatever. They're not going to mention any of this stuff. And this ain't a Democrat versus Republican or what you're going to be on team A or team B or whatever. Bunk all of that. You can have all of that. What I am asking you is this. How can you call yourself sane when your concern about children, Black children, is conditional based on who kills them? So if a Black child gets murdered by someone else that's Black, that's just what it is. It's just niggas stuff. Niggas don't being niggas. Asian man does something. Oh no, that's it. We're gonna do a boycott. Fight the power. That's it. You know what we're saying in that messaging? What we're saying is that the bodies of Black children have no value unless the bullet comes from someone that's white. Now, or someone that's non-Black. Now, that is the absolute lowest of the low viewpoint of yourself, of your own dignity. When you can't even assess a value to your own children unless they have been shot by somebody who doesn't look like them. There's no assessment. Just throw them in, they're just in the bargain bin. But the moment a bullet enters their body and it comes from Mr. Chow or Mr. White, now all of a sudden we have all the investment of emotions to invest into this story. We have all the investment here, money on the table. Honey, we got endless investment. Here's our $600,000 or $800,000 like we did with Carmelo Anthony. Child, we got investment. We're going to put into this story and we're going to defend this person. But someone that just needs a couple of $1,000 just to get a bullet out of their body because some crazy behind Negroes decide to have a shootout in the street. Well, we can't find any money for that. That's not really important. That's just nigga stuff. So I'm asking you, is this something that you are in CommUNITY with? Is this the value that you assess on your children? That if your own child, for example, was to get shot by another Black child, would you just be sad and that's it? Versus if they got shot by a white person, now all of a sudden you're behind microphones and want to lead a movement. These are some very real questions that I'm asking people to really think about and to process. And I'll close out with this. I think that's it, but I'll close out with this. I remember years ago, I'll look it up, maybe I'll repost it one day on the community page. But I remember years ago, oh man, this was many, many years ago. There was a story out of Chicago, and this will break your heart. Out of Chicago, where in their coroner's office, they had so many bodies of individuals, mostly Black, that they could not identify. In other words, they didn't know the names of them. They were literally stacking them on top of one another. The coroner's office was full of bodies. They couldn't even name, they didn't have a name on it because nobody would come in and identify them. So what the coroner's office ended up doing, this Cook County coroner's office, you can look it up. What they ended up doing is digging a big hole, and just like the Holocaust, just threw them all in the hole because nobody wanted them. Nobody would claim them. And many of these individuals were black. So you tell me, does what you call the black community actually care for its children? Care for the homeless that are out there? Or do you just use the homeless as a punchline just so that you can attack them? You can use them to attack Republicans or MAGA? Or is there a general care for it? I would argue that what we call the community doesn't care about these kids. They don't care about the homeless. They don't care about the mentally ill. They don't care about that. Are there black people out there who do care? Absolutely. And they're working to solve the issue every day. That is true. But to say that collectively the black community cares about these individuals, I would say a hell no to that. And I think if we're honest, if we're truly honest, I think we would all have to agree to that. But the problem is that most people don't want to be honest. It's a lot easy to pivot and to emote when the one that is committing the crime is someone that we despise with our mouths publicly, but privately we want to be like them. But that's a whole nother story. But anyway, if you want to go ahead and do your boycott against Asian stores or whatever, go at it. Remember, if you're very serious about that, then we should see a whole pile of wigs and lace frontals and eyelashes and nails and all of that. They should all be going out of business. But that's not going to happen, and I think we know that. And we do all that as a way to commemorate a boy, quite honestly, that most people really do not care about. And that, my friend, is the sad part of this entire story. Well, I hope you got something out of this, and I hope it really causes you to think. Because in this video, like I said again, what I wanted to do is to start off, let's look at the facts that we do know. Okay, no, making stuff up and assumptions and I heard this and that or whatever. No, let's look at exactly what happened. And that's what we did. So if you came into this conversation, partly or whatever, I would greatly encourage you go back to the beginning and just follow it through. And like I said, again, if it's something that you do not agree with, if there's anything that I say, I welcome it. I absolutely welcome it. But I would just simply ask for you to fully explain yourself as to why. Just like I took this time to fully explain myself, I would expect you to do the same. And it's okay if we don't necessarily agree. It's okay for that. It's quite all right. But I think there's some foundational things we should agree with. And I tried to make an argument on this that there is no care. It's convenience. And that's it. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys got something out of this. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next video. You guys take care, and make sure you check out our website, Samba Tree. Again, that's Samba.